and it requires states to cooperate and consult with the indigenous people on decisions that may impact their human rights in order to obtain their consent. But even though the international human rights law and standards for safeguarding indigenous people's rights have developed significantly in recent decades, unfortunately the national legislation hasn't been developing at the same pace with the international standards. Our report presents the main laws regulating the FPIC in Norway, Sweden and Finland, and it also identifies the inconsistencies and legal gaps, such as there are no provisions for respecting without consent. After the Supreme Court with the international standard of FPIC. But as far as we know, the government of Sweden has not taken any measures. From the Rönnbäcken area, Vapstensite, with this quote, I also want to show how these conflicts over land, they are not only about law or legal issues. They are also like ontological, and they are about the meaning of the land. So as Torkel here tells us, they don't see the spiritual connection to the land. They don't see the whole history of the area. You are invisible, like a football field of rocks that they need to access. So this is what was quite obvious in all these three cases, that while the authorities and companies, they see the land as only a source of resources, while for the local communities, the Sami communities, the land is full of different kinds of meanings. And the Sami meanings, they are not recognized and they are not respected. The case from Finland is from the Käsivarsi area, about the mineral exploration permit processes. And this process, what we studied, also took over 10 years. It was only about the permit processes, so there are no like mines planned yet. It's about like geological exploration to seek the minerals from the ground. But there was also very recent decisions from the UN human rights bodies from last October, which confirmed that this mineral exploration without the consent of the local Sami had been a human rights violation. Also, I wanted to add to this slide a photo which is where the Sami from Käsivarsi area are in the front of the Parliament House of Finland. Just to show an example, like that in all these three cases, the Sami themselves have also been very active defending their traditional lands and using very multiple methods. For example, in Käsivarsi area, the local Sami collected nearly 40,000 signatures to the petition which they took to the government of Finland, demanding that there shouldn't be any mining-related activities in the Käsivarsi area. And here's also a quote from Minna Näkkäläjärvi, who's a reindeer herder and activist from the Käsivarsi area. And she says that even if there's just a reservation notification, it still means that we are not able to develop our own livelihood because the future of the area is so uncertain. The fact that this area is now bound to something else hinders the development of our traditional livelihood, as I can't trust that we can use this area in a few years' time. And this also kind of shows that even in cases where there are no actual activities and there are no like environmental impacts or anything really happening on the ground, just like these kind of planned projects can cause a huge stress and uncertainty to the local communities. But this kind of damage is often invisible what comes to the authorities and courts when they assess these kind of processes. Well, just shortly to conclude, what our report found is that despite the recent steps to strengthen the legislation on consultations and collaborative processes, Sami representatives still lack legal guarantees ensuring meaningful participation and effective consultation over decisions on the use of their traditional lands. Also, the legal systems in Finland, Sweden and Norway lack safeguards obligating decision makers to obtain FPIC before initiating land use projects that may impact Sami culture and livelihoods. This inadequate legislation can lead to years-long disputes which have great personal costs for affected Sami. This resulting uncertainty is draining and hampers the development of traditional livelihoods. It also may have some psychological and negative health impacts on the local Sami. Also, the national authorities' poor understanding of Sami culture, power imbalances, and the limited opportunities for meaningful participation challenge the realization of rights or obtain legal redress for affected Sami. Then I'm not going very deep into the recommendations, but I can just say that there are many in this report. They are like dozens. But these are just few key recommendations that we give to all 3 states. We also have like separate recommendations for government of Sweden, Norway and Finland. But what we recommend is that to protect the human rights in the face of the climate crisis, the states should firstly like phase out fossil fuel production and consumption as quickly as possible. But they also need to strengthen the legal recognition of Sami people by adopting legislation that ensures obtaining free, prior and informed consent. States should also ensure that all the land use projects that are planned in Sapmi, the initiators consult Sami representatives in order to obtain their free, prior and informed consent. And no land use developments in mining or energy sector should take place without the free, prior and informed consent of the Sami concerned. We also recommend that states allocate sufficient resources for Sami representatives to participate effectively in consultations. States should also establish domestic and sector-specific mechanism for benefit sharing and compensation in relation to any decision to limit Indigenous people's right with the exceptional circumstances of Article 46 of the UN RIP, not going into detail what that is. And also ensure through trainings and other resources that decision makers and officials who handle matters that may impact the Sami people's rights, that they have adequate knowledge about Sami culture and livelihoods, and also about the state's international human rights obligations. But I think I have used my time now, so thank you, kiitos, tack, kiitos.
Sorry, thank you, Elina. I would now like to invite the panel up to the stage. You know who you are, so I won't call you sort of each and every one by name. Just please take a seat. Okay, thank you. I think because there have been some changes, I think maybe we will just have them sort of introduce themselves in a round so I don't say anything wrong.
Right.
Please, we start over there.
Yes, hello, my name is Maren Irene Gårde Bakkevold. Today I'm representing the Tromsø Labour Party. I have some years behind me as a local representative, both at the county level and also at the local level in Balsfjord municipality. I also did my master's in law this summer, and I wrote about if a Sami law book would be, how would I say it? Well, I wrote about Sami law. Yeah, let's just keep it at that for now. And I've also been a part of the Sami fraction in the Labour Party. So, yeah.
And she's incredibly sporty and brave because she didn't know she was going to participate like 10 hours ago.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
this
thank
is
you.
very, very good. Thank you so much. Please.
Hello, my name is Sten Gunnar Bondevik. I am the Director of Marketing for Renewables Norway, which is an association of industries that deal with renewable energy in Norway. So we, to put it in simple terms, we organize all the energy companies, grid companies, production companies that deal with, and also the supply chain that work with renewable energy in Norway. I have my background from up here. I come from a little place, Finnsnes, a little south of here. I know a lot of the people here. I've been working with many of you from my position in Troms Kraft as head of public relations there. And I'm also a musician and a poet.
Cool.
Thank you.
Is he brave as well? I don't know. Maybe. Please. We have met you already, so
yeah.
but anyway.
My name is Per-Olof Nutti. I'm a president of a Sami council. My background is I'm a reindeer herder on the Swedish side of Sapmi, Rostu, Käggan, Wopmi, the northernmost Sami village in Sweden. So that's why I take this job, because I have the connection with the Norwegian side of the reindeer herding act convention that we had with Norway. So I move my reindeer to the Norwegian side on the summertime and wintertime, and I'm on the Swedish side. So that's yeah. Thank you.
Uriäket, mulle Else Grete Broderstad, mun båda Marskosamis. Ja len maitai Romsta Universitetabargi, ja deuske mun maitai kiitan bovdiumiots. So I'm Else Grete Broderstad. I work at the university here in Tromsø, but I am from the Marska Sami area, south of Tromsø. Yeah, and in my education, I'm a political scientist as the basis, but I work with Indigenous studies.
And I am, as I've already said, John. So that's enough for that. As you have gathered, we are going to frame this conversation. I don't. It might become a debate. It could become a debate, but it could also be more of a conversation than a heated debate, and nobody's going to accuse anybody of being Russia friendly, as we learned yesterday. You can't do. No. Didn't see the button yesterday. It was a big scandal. Anyway, we're going to frame it, of course, within the green transition, but it will be about indigenous rights and the Sami perspective, as we have tried to present it in the report that has just been presented to you, will be important in this. I just noticed, and I think that is something that we should all probably bear in mind, particularly those of us who are Norwegian, in the sense the majority population here, what Per-Olof said, there is a way forward. I think we should also work in that spirit, but we also know that as the majority, we have a lot to learn. There is going to be a lot of talk, I think, about this weird abbreviation that, I don't know if you know, Elina, but sounds slightly like a rude word in Norwegian, FPIC. Free, prior, informed consent. So I thought we've seen the definition as it is in human rights instruments, etc. But I would just like to have a quick round for you to say in your words what you believe, and I'll just use the whole thing, free, prior, informed consent means. And we'll go the other way around. So we start with you. And in as normal language as possible, because this room is full of experts, but there are millions of people out there in cyberspace, and they're like me, they're not experts at all.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm so old-fashioned that I have prepared my notes here in a book, so I'm not. But yes, we heard that it is a global standard. It's a global standard that is relates to this interaction between indigenous peoples and the state. And I think also it is important to mention that it arises from indigenous people's right to self-determination. It's most comprehensive, with many provisions, articles in the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, UNDRIP, but it is also established in ILO 169, the 1989 convention. And I think what we already heard, the free, prior, informed consent. I just want to underline that consent implies an option to reject or to support a development project. I think that is important to bear in mind. And it is also a standard or principle that is taken up by the private sector actors. Maybe we return to that. And it was mentioned here that you have recommendations in the report that is about how it can be developed or implemented nationally. This is something that is already happening, and I'm referring to Canada, where it actually was the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in 2015 that called for UNDRIP to be passed into legislation. So that happened in 2021 in Canada in federal legislation, but now it's also happening at the provincial level. So that's my initial comment.
Thank you. Per-Olof? Is it okay if I just use your first names?
Yeah.
Yes, good.
It's
Per-Olof.
okay. You can also call me Berola if you want.
Per-Ola.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
my Samish name.
Okay.
I prefer the last name.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I use the last name.
Okay, free, prior and informed consent is rooted in the right to self-determination of indigenous peoples. So this right ensures that the indigenous people have the right to give the consent of matters that may affect them. FPIC, I want to call it shortly FPIC forward.
Fine.
So
Yeah.
includes being free, fully informed, and having the right to say yes or no. It's, for me, it's very easy. In this way, it connects directly to our rights of, as I mentioned, self-determination. It provides a way to put our rights to self-determination into practice, and that's a very difficult and hard. Because I have experience of that. Maybe I can take it later, but maybe it's too early today. But I'm going to take this experience I had before. I also consider that the EPIC safety net for the indigenous peoples and means to meaningful participation. It provides a platform for exploring solutions. Throughout the FPIC process, potential harm to indigenous peoples' rights are identified and measures to mitigate them are explored. FPIC also aims to restore indigenous people's own control over their land and resources, protect their cultural identity, and address power imbalances between indigenous peoples and states. So I stay there for.
Thank you. Mr. Bondevik?
Thank you, John. I'm a linguist. I'm not a trained legal professional, so I would have to ask for clarification because there is something here that I'm not quite understand. I'm not claiming that my understanding is right, so that's why I'll be asking questions, okay? Because according to ILO, the handbook that I just went through, and I'm on thin ice, like I said, because I'm not a legal professional. It says that FPIC is used where relocation of these peoples from lands which they occupy is considered necessary as an exceptional measure. As I hear it, it sounds like it is suggested that this way of working is to be applied in every case, every project that may in some way or another affect Sami life and culture, whereas my understanding from the readings in the handbook from ILO is a much more narrow. I mean, it should be put in use where there is, as an exceptional measure, where there is the project requires actual relocation. You have to sort of leave the area, and how should we understand that? Because it sounds like a general measure that should be applied to any case, whereas the ILO. And then I also need to, because nobody talked about that, and I know that is the understanding for many, and also for the Canadian Supreme Court, and it also says explicitly in the ILO handbook that consultations do not imply a right to veto, nor is the result of the consultation necessarily the reaching of agreement or consent. So I need I would really like to sort of, for my understanding of this, I would need to sort of discuss that and hopefully obtain a common understanding in the room or in the panel.
Yep.
Hopefully.
This smells like a debate, which is fantastic. It also smells as if I can
Well,
just throw my script. I can just throw my script away and we'll go for it.
Well,
But before we go,
I think a debate requires a claim. I'm not claiming
Oh,
anything.
yeah.
I'm asking the question.
That is a very well-known technique. I'm only asking questions.
Oh, thank you.
But before we go into that, because we will take a round on that, because
Okay.
we can't let that just
No,
go. No, but your right is
Yes.
also there to say what your opinion. What is ethnic?
When I looked at this question, my first thought, because I mean, obviously I've heard about it before in my law course, and I'm happy that Else was before me and could do like a proper academic presentation of it, because I think FPIC can be a useful tool. However, is there one thing that I've learned from politics is how important, you know, those informal conversations are, and that like coffee and also building trust. So I think in order for FPIC to really like be a useful tool, there needs to be a fundamental trust amongst the ones that are doing the consultation. And I heard about the story about a mayor who made a point out of inviting the local reindeer herders for a coffee when he first got elected, as one of the first things he wanted to do. And that made it a lot easier for them to have a collaboration and conversations when when you had those conflicts arise, because I mean, obviously there will be conflicts arising. So building that initial trust, and also recognizing that like the Sami interest needs to be there from the get-go, not like when you get to the end of the process, or not, and even before the consultation, like having that Sami perspective from the beginning and making sure that they have a seat at the table from the start is really important.
Okay, you literally gave me the perfect segue to what was to be my first question. But I think we need to have a little round after so that Mr. Bumvik, I'm joking, I'm not trying to
Never
separate
said that.
you.
Okay, she never said that. Sorry.
Stein Gunnar.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
So Stein Gunnar, I was also joking when I said it's a common technique just to ask questions. It is important, and it is important. I can show you. I was planning to end the whole thing with asking, so is there a veto?
Okay.
I wrote that there. So you
Yeah.
came before me.
I don't know.
Yes, Elsa.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. So you refer to ILO 169, and that is, as I said, it established the standard of free, prior, and informed consent, but it is further developed in UNDRIP, in the UN Declaration. And I think that is what we need to also to bear in mind, because in UNDRIP there are 6 provisions that address FPIC, this standard. It is our provision 10 on relocation. It is about effective mechanisms to restitute culture. It's about consultation. And it is this for this debate here about land and resources, it's provision 32, and there is also one 29. So it's much more developed in UNDRIP, I would say that the consultation arrangement which we have in Norway, based on ILO 169, has many elements that can be further developed and improved. So I think it's important, when you talk about what this implies, you need to refer to UNDRIP as the most comprehensive, as the most developed human rights instrument, even if it's a declaration. But it has a moral weight. Which is also becoming is being included in national legislation.
Yes, I assumed you would want to say something.
I want to say something. Yeah, free, prior, and informed consent is a principle of international law and human rights. So, in my understanding, if I take this, we start with the free. Free for me it's a decision must be made without coercion, manipulation of treat. I mean, the communities, Sami communities, indigenous people should have the freedom to say yes or no. And my understanding at the prior consent must be given before any project or decision is implanted, not afterwards. Because when the harm may have already occurred. So I mean, this is why my experience is when I have a negotiation with on the Swedish side with the department when we start about the Consultation Act in Sweden. The first step they took, they don't want to have FPIC within, because it was so sensitive for these parties in the Swedish government. So the first thing they do, they take off the FPIC. So I feel like you're toothless. You can't eat food if you have teeth. So it's an example. And the next, informed. In my understanding, communities must be given all relevant information in an understandable way, including risks, benefits, and alternative solutions. And consent, the affected community has the right to say yes or no to the project and to participate at the decision-making process on their own terms. That's my understanding.
Could I just have a comment to this? And I mean, what all these free, prior, informed are core elements also in the consultation right and consent. That in the consultation agreement, there is an aim to reach consent, according to ILO 169.
Right.
But while in UNDRIP it is an option to either say support a project or say or oppose it.
Right.
So I think So that's my point here, that there are many elements in the already established consultation arrangement that speaks to this FPIC standard.
Well, and I'm not opposed to any of those principles in the consultation and in the participation process, and I can also prove that by giving my account of the various processes that I've been part of. So that's no problem. But I'm just trying to reach an understanding. And how do you see what should the effect or of a no from you? What do you expect from a no, that the project stops, or that you have had the right to say no, but that government or other entities can still disagree with you? How do you see that?
I don't mention, but I have been a chairman, chief in my chairman, maybe in my Sami village, Rosto. So my first experience with FPIC was with Norwegian government and department, because maybe that was your company. I don't say the name, but we have.
I'm not with the company now.
But that was my first experience with a consultation, and it was on Norwegian side, because the Norwegian state was long before, for example, us in Sweden.
Right.
Yeah. So that what happened in my community and my village was that we have to interested in our village was to say split red, because someone want this, but other don't want it, and that's when we come to this. Then when the states come with efforts, and we give you this and we give you this, if you accept, and if you don't, that's happened. So that's perspective being at the. For someone, it's okay to do it because they have something to win about it. But we almost have to think about the communities, all the Sami villages, and all the rights we have that we don't give to another, because they want to give us something we don't want, but most of us don't want. So that happened with it in this case. So that's fair, I see. And I saw another example here. That's the feeding the reindeer. There's also a way they split the Sami communities. Someone want to do it, but other won't do that. So this be conflicts in my village, in the village, Sami village, in the Sami communities. That's the effect.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, so I'll try to sum this up
Okay.
in the sense that I hate all these abbreviations, but it's so hard to say of the full word. UNDRIP sort of evolves the principle of FPIC. It's what we've been told. So it's not only in the most radical situations where people are sort of have to be moved away where it should be applied. There isn't, and I don't know whether I'm correct in saying this, but I don't think there is a kind of agreement on that in any and every project that there is a discussion about. In this example, the Sami people could say no and stop any project as if they had a veto. Am I correct in that? That it might have something to do with the size of the project, etc., etc. I'm looking at the academic.
Of course,
help me.
the size of the project is important in order to decide whether the degree of the consent.
Yeah.
So if if it is a project with a huge impact, it is expected that there should be a consent.
The consent.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. We'll go on. And I had the perfect segue from Maren, but I haven't got it right now, but it is a question for you, Per-Olof. I won't violate the Sami language by trying to say, I'm sorry. But you wrote a foreword for this report, and the focus of that was to describe a Sami perspective on the green transition. And that's kind of the whole framework of this discussion. So could you kind of share a little bit of what you wrote in the foreword, because everybody will read that report, but they haven't done it yet. So you can. So what is how would you describe the Sami perspective on the green transition?
Yeah, maybe in the way that the Sami people have learned to be alert when the term green transition is mentioned. So to some extent, it is a new name for all models of actions. We are used to other asking us. We are used to other asking us to step aside, so they can meet their needs, and often this happens in our expense. So now, under the label of a green transition, so these same projects are present as serve to humanity. This makes them harder to question or oppose. Suddenly, projects for profit are called morally good and essential for the sustainable future. But maybe this is misleading some way. Yeah. The Sami people feel the impacts of the climate crisis every day, as I mentioned before. We know our knowledge is key to solving this challenge in our lands. Yet when the green transition projects want to use our lands, they make it seem like resisting them means opposing climate solutions. So, but we are not against climate solutions. We are against projects that harm our lands while pretending to help the planet. A green transition must also be just transition. We want to protect our lands and so fight climate change. So let's briefly.
Thank you, Else Grete. This, to me, sounds like, from a Sami perspective, the green transition can sort of seem like, and excuse my language, same shit, new wrapping. That this is a continuation of something that has happened over a very, very long time. And in our report, Sami rights holders that we interviewed expressed a fear of continued assimilation. And you have been following the truth and reconciliation process in Norway. And is this fear mirrored in the discourse about truth and reconciliation?
Yes, the short answer is yes. And if we look into the interviews that is in the report, we see that there are several who express it exactly in that way. But of course, this question about continued assimilation, it's also a question how to counteract it. And as you say, I've been on a project, and among others, I've been working with a colleague of mine, Eva Josefsen, and we have pointed out that in order to counteract assimilation, it's not enough to just focus on compensation of past injustices. We also have to look into where is the system in need to be changed. And of course, there have been system change since this famous Alta conflict in the late 70s, early 80s. But still, even the Commission talks about, states that assimilation is still ongoing. And there is an implementation gap. And I see in the report you talk a lot about knowledge and the need to increase knowledge among decision makers at different levels. But in that debate about knowledge, we also stress that it's not about only filling these knowledge gaps. We need to ask, who has the power to decide what is relevant knowledge? And who produce knowledge? And not least, what knowledge is it that decision makers ignore? And I have a colleague, her name is Eva Maria Fjellheim, who has written her dissertation on this concept of, or also discussed this concept of strategic ignorance. And her main focus was on knowledge controversies in southern Sami reindeer herding areas, especially focusing on Fosen and on Øyfjellet. So I think this is important. And if I may, also one point, because since you mentioned truth and reconciliation, I want to draw attention to what happened in November last year, in 2024, because that's when the National Parliament, Storting, discussed this TRC report. And the Stortinget, they apologized for the active role that previous parliaments had in this assimilation policy. But what I find a bit problematic is that they didn't, or the majority in the national parliament didn't address the Fosen case. And it was only the minority groups, the party groups, that proposed measures on land rights. And I think that is important to be aware of, because it is really significant that we had a unanimous grand chamber in the Supreme Court that said that the license is invalid. So I think this would have been a chance also for the national parliament as a whole to address land issues and address the Fosen case in a reconciliation framework, which the majority didn't. But it's good that the majority parties actually did that in their proposals. So.
Thank you. Stein Gunnar, as I said, you're a brave man. You're sort of, not that we're all out to get you, but you you do represent the renewable energy sector that is sort of very, very central to the green transition and to the discussion we have here. And I'd like to ask, how, within the industry, how do you address human rights concerns in some areas? If you have some examples, if not, in general, where that is a topic.
Well, let me go a little bit back to. I worked for Tromskraft, which is a regional power company here, or energy company here in this county. I was there from 2019 to 2022. During this period, we had some, serious debates, serious discussions whether, are we really good enough? Do we have the necessary understanding of the Sami culture? It is around us all the time. I'm saying us now as if I were still in that company. The Sami people are owners because it's owned by all the people in. The Sami people are our customers. They are our adversaries, or in certain conflict cases, they are partners often. There is a daily contact. If we are, maybe most people here work in an office, but people who don't, they often work together on a daily basis. If there's a helicopter flight, for example, for a repair on the grid, they often cooperate with the local reindeer herder about bringing out stuff that they need. So that there is continuous cooperation and communication. But we still saw that we have a way to go. We have a way to go in the way we approach projects. We have a way to go in the way we respect Sami views, the way we talk about it, to be very, very honest. And so we decided that we have to start from scratch. We have to really, do something else. So we started the project with where it started with a name for the new grid company, Arva, and with that a series of projects that implemented a whole new way of working with the Samis, regulations, how to sort of making sure that in all consultations, in all meetings, that there was an offer, for example, for translation and well, there was a whole. It was sort of made a rule book. I quit this job for love. I had to go to Oslo. That has to be a very strong love to
understand that. We all love Oslo.
To go to that city compared to this one, and that was the saddest part of leaving that job, that I was also leaving that area of work, because I felt it was very important, and I was nowhere near completion. But then I was fortunate enough to get a job for the Energy Association. And we started now, we're officially launching on February 11, the Indigenous Peoples Network. And it does not consist of Indigenous peoples, but people who work with this in the industry. It has created a lot of attention and a lot of interest. This report, Aili, will be for the launch meeting. We actually had a pre-launch just before Christmas with Kjetil Zakariasen from the committee, and I experience this interest here is that after Fosen, and which is a sort of a landmark. What should we call it? Disaster for the sector. But also a learning experience of an unsurpassed importance, I think. There is the interest in learning exactly what you say, how to build competence with the people who work with this on a daily basis. We need to meet to share our knowledges and experiences. And hopefully also it can be a platform for dialogue. I have many representatives from the Sami communities that have raised their hand and said that they would like to meet this network that will consist of 30, 40 professionals, everything from sustainability managers to communication people to project managers, people, some of them who have worked with Sami relations for their whole career, whereas other people are new to the area. But the willingness to learn and the acceptance of the fact that we need to get much better as an industry, I feel is certainly there. So I look forward to that work, and also very much forward to have this as a sort of a dream start to that work.
Thank you. Maren?
Yeah.
With your political experience, and you started by saying sort of on the, I have to say it again, FPIC, sort of an informal start to be having cups of coffee and sort of meeting and getting to know each other. But you have experience both from regional and local governance, and I assume that also with your background that you see the challenges, but you also see as a politician the benefits of energy and mineral projects, etc., in communities. So how have you approached that as a politician?
Well, I think obviously there's this need for more renewable energy and for minerals, and also, I mean, money and capital is nice, but I think in order to understand why so many local politicians are keen on doing this project, we have to understand what is in like the forefront of most local politicians up here north, and that's the lack of people, the demographical changes that are happening. The population is getting older. There's not a lot of young ones being born, and the ones that are being born are flooding the area and moving to bigger cities. I mean, even here in Tromsø, the child population rates are going down. So
unfortunately, they're not flooding the area; they're fleeing.
fleeing,
the
yeah,
area.
fleeing. Thanks. So I mean, the benefits are pretty like obvious and out there in the open. But I think the challenges, I mean, of course, there's the reindeer herding. But from what I can see in my local community, Balsfjord, which is a place where Tromskraft, Stein Gunnar's former employer, has proposed a new windmill project in the area of some reindeer herders. And it's not just the reindeer herders who are protesting, it's a lot of the local community, because I mean, up here in north, it's not just the Sami people who have a connection to nature. We all feel a very strong connection to nature, I think. And then I think this is a very good example of what is happening, because this reindeer herding flock, they have already given a lot of land to the military for shooting training area, and they have also given a lot of land to cabin and ski resort developments. So we have already thoughtful, without any thought, just like using their land to whatever. And I mean, I personally would rather prefer more renewable energy than more cabins. That's just me. But I think we've been very bad at like having a long vision for what we're going to use our land to, and the implications of just using it to whatever feels like the most important thing at the time. And another thing I also want to address is the fact that when these projects arise, and I think you especially see this in Finnmark, is that it creates a lot of conflict. I mean, I think we're going to talk more about Fosen later, but these conflicts also have a tendency to create more harassment and hate towards Sami people. And I think that it does that a lot of Sami people just like shuts down, because there's so much harassment directed towards them. So of course, you don't feel interested in having a bigger like conversation and finding solutions when you're experiencing so much hate.
Exactly. Yes, we also did an investigation into hate speech against Sami people.
I follow you. I just want to a quick note on what you said about that Tromsø has proposed a new wind power, not park, but plant. That's the whole difference in their approach and in the approach that I am hoping that the whole industry can take. And I know this, they did not propose a new power plant. They proposed a feasibility study that now because there are only a few areas in terms where 2 or 3 areas in terms where that is interesting from an industrial perspective. This is one of them. So I think the new approach, where some years ago they would propose, and it should be like this. Now they start from scratch and say, well, this area has the qualities of it is feasible actually, but before we take any decision on that, we need to talk to people, we need to talk to the reindeer herders, we need to talk to the municipality. We really need to study this, and the feedback that they get from that, the possible resistance or the possible obstacles that come up, and the protest. I feel convinced that will be part of the decision that will be taken within this the involved actors at a later stage. So I think we should grant that. I mean, when that change has happened, I think we should sort of acknowledge that, because that's exactly what we're asking here, is that how do we approach this projects? And I know that has happened, but it hasn't happened in all projects, unfortunately.
Yes. I'll just, you will have the word next, I promise. Time is running out, so I am going to skip a few questions, and we're going to look, so you can just start. You can say what you want to say and then start on the question where we look into the future. And for you, we were asking sort of what do you see can be done to improve the collaboration between state, municipalities, the state, municipalities, and the Sami when planning energy projects? So we'll just sort of just answer, say what you plan to say based on reacting to him, and then just follow on into the question. And just so you know, we will try to have about 10 minutes left for questions from the floor after, if I'm able to control these people. Mara.
Yes, and I just want to give credit where credit's due, and I think Troms Kraft, I mean, they're one of the better power plant companies that are, and also I know that Troms Kraft is compensating the Sami people who are participating in consultation, which I think is a very important point, because these consultations are long, they're complicated, and I mean, reindeer herders are already busy in court, so I think that's a very important step that I want to appreciate Troms Kraft for doing. And you also asked me the question, and I think that, I mean, I started with saying that you need to like reach out and build trust, and also make sure that the Sami interests are part of the local, the early decision-making processes. And I also have seen some things that, like some systemic changes that I think needs to be done, or at least thought of, because I did like this part-time job in the, I've written it down here, the county governor, in the
We all learned that now.
Yeah, in the reindeer herding department over there. And what's interesting is that in the municipalities, they all have their agriculture departments, and they have a person who works with agriculture. So they're very aware of what spaces are being used for agriculture. But the first line for the reindeer herders is the county governor. And so the municipalities don't have this, they don't feel the same kind of responsibility for the reindeer herders. And I think on a like systemic level, I don't know how we're going to do it, but it needs to be like taken down to the municipalities, because right now the municipalities are already like very annoyed with the county governor, because they're the ones telling them all the stuff they can't do with their land and everything else as well. So but doing something surrounding that, I think would be like a key factor.
Thank you. I'm mixing up the way in which I give the words now, if you have been looking at this very closely. So I'll go to you, Ilse,
Yep.
you can once again react to what you want
Yeah.
to react to, and then answer the question if the international community can provide some good examples that we could use going forward. This is the going forward part.
Yeah.
So please.
But first, some comments here, and I totally agree. I think what you're describing, Sten Gunnar, about knowledge building within the private sector and in industry is really, really important. But I'm more concerned now also regarding the role of the municipalities. Because as I have understood, the municipalities will have a larger role in the license process when it comes to wind power. And they are also obliged to consult according to the new regulations in the Sami Act. So, and municipalities do have a human rights responsibility. So my concern here is how are they going to handle and deal with these both obligation to consult, but also the knowledge base related to human rights. How to interpret Article 27, how to discuss the threshold when a violation is reached, all those questions which are so important. So that's my concern here, how to ensure that the municipalities are able to deal with these issues. And I just want to pay attention to this program that has been sent on the Norwegian NRK about the role of municipalities in large nature, where nature is developed. So, and it's really a clear challenge about the lack of capacity here.
So yes, okay, we'll
Only briefly. I have an example of a municipality about Kiruna. Kiruna is my home municipality. You know, that they take a decision, the municipality and the reindeer herder village, not to start up the mining, the graffiti mining in Vachas, Vittangi. But the government have another solution, so they take another decisions and make they got to start this mining in Kiruna. So this is an example for even the municipality and want to work with the Sami village and the Sami communities. Not often win this kind of game, so that's well up.
So they're overruled by the government.
Yes, exactly.
Any good international examples that the Scandinavians, some of the Scandinavian countries could use?
Yeah, I saw that question.
If there aren't any,
and I think what is a problem here that was what initially looks like a very good practice, it is eventually weakened. And I think we can see that in a circumpolar context also due to the increased rush that is. But I have tried to also to search in the literature and several studies point to Yukon, the territory of Yukon in Canada, as a classic consent regime due to the modern treaties, due to the... So that, of course, could be... and one of these are, this is a reference to an author, Roberta Rice, and I think she has made a typology which I think is interesting also for us. She talks about communication regimes, which is only one-way information. State and companies provide information to indigenous people, and then you have consultation regimes. It's an exchange of information, but consent is not required, and then you have a consent regime. And clearly, what we can say here in the Nordic context that we are not there at the consent regime, but I find that typology interesting, and also because we need to ask ourselves what are the institutional requirements, the institutional systems we need in order to implement this standard.
Stein Gunnar, as we're going in, I will of course give the president the last word. I'm in the room with the president, I mean, obviously, but before we go there, having heard this discussion, and of course, you've been working on this, obviously, around this theme for a long time, but sort of trying to look at it very sort of coolly and calmly from an industry perspective. Do you sort of, and be as honest as you can, but do you think this could actually be beneficial, this approach, the FPIC approach, if you wish? could be beneficial for the renewable energy to go straight into your area? Or do you only see it, or do you see it as more harmful, more problematic, disregarding, let's be very kind, disregarding the climate change we are all staring at?
Well, again, underlining that I'm not legal professional, but I FPIC has been already implemented by the International Hydro Association, for example. It is implemented in many financial institutions. It's not a new concept, and I think that you will struggle today with finding a serious developer who disagrees in that it should be, the processes for it's not just, providing information. Here, read this. I think we're past that. At least I hope so, and I'll be working definitely for to make sure that those times are gone. So whether if we go sort of deeper into it and say that this specific measure, that specific tool instrument should be applied in Norwegian legislation, I do not have that kind of competence to sort of understand the implications, the full implications of that. But in general, the approach to the stakeholders of any project is I couldn't agree more that, and of course seeking the consent, not with a gun to your head, but because we talk about things, and I've been part of that. I've worked in Vannøya, for example, with Tore Vidar Kitty there, and we had a very good process where we went into the field and said, there, not there, please avoid that area. How can we sort of fix this? No, that's too much. A little less, and that kind of just very practical and down to. But I need to sort of say towards the end here that I now we're talking in sort of a legal framework. I'm sort of hoping. Because as you started, we do not oppose. We're also concerned. We're all concerned about climate change, and I'm hoping that sort of we can get together and be able to have a dialogue and a talk that where we do not fear to say anything wrong, or anything that we can meet in court, or something that where we can discuss how we can get this done, and without being risking being held accountable in a court near you the next week, but where we okay, what do you mean? How can we, if we should do this together, how can we sort of, as friends and neighbors, come on, we've been living here for, my family has been here for generations, for hundreds and hundreds of years. We're relatives, we're friends, we're neighbors, and I'm sort of hoping for a future where we can work together as neighbors, and towards the same goal, and because from what I hear, we have the same goal. I'm not representing anyone who sort of like to put up wind turbines for fun. I've never met anyone like that.
Okay, I think we have to go in for landing, and I have to let Per-Olof sort of have the last word before questions, because I think we all agree that things should sort of be done in the spirit of understanding and friendship. But we also know that if everything is voluntary and we're just all sweet and nice and say good things to each other, somebody normally ends up losing. And unfortunately, minorities are very often at the losing end of that. So if you could sort of one systemic change, and whether it is sort of pan-Scandinavian, sort of both, it would be the same in Norway, Sweden, and Finland, or it's for Sweden mainly, if you know that better than the others, but being the president of the Sami Council, you probably know all the jurisdictions well. Sort of just one systemic change. I think, okay, if that could happen, that would take us. It wouldn't create paradise, nothing does, but it would take us a step towards the right.
Okay, yeah. And for me, the consultation and early dialogue is very important. We have the mechanism for that in Nordic legislation, but it's not enough. And in order to get this meaningful dialogue, we need everyone to understand that the rights are that they cannot be ignored. And the processes must be based on the fact that the legal frameworks exist still, which limit the actions governments can take. So, briefly before, and I have some notes here at last, but how I see about the future of FPIC. Strengthening the FPICs requires better legislation and legal enforcement is one. And the next is greater transparency in consultation process. It's a very important. Strengthen rights for the indigenous people in negotiation, as we have talked about here, and international standard as companies adhere to. And that's important because we have to, as you say, we live in the same area, we have to understand each other, and that's the starting point in everywhere, in all the negotiation. That's, we all are here and we have to share this, but remember, there is indigenous people who have his rights and the understanding, and then we're talking about knowledge building. It's very important to get that to the who decision makers, and also for the citizens in Sweden, Norway, and Finland, so they know about the Sami rights, Sami culture. I have an example. In Sweden, we have what we call julkalender, and this year, last year, 24, there was about a Sami culture. In 24 days, Swedish citizens have learned about the Sami culture. It's much more than the Sami parliaments had done in 30 years. So that's a good example. That's a few remarks.
So
thank you.
Thank you so much. So the systemic change we need is Christmas calendars every year in all the only about Sami culture. Okay, I have violated everybody's time, but we have a few minutes. We have oh my dear, but I'll take it in the order I saw them. So at the back, and if you want to ask the question in Norwegian, we can translate. If you want to ask it in Sami, could we also translate? I don't know, but you'll do it in English. Okay, cool. Go ahead.
Yeah, to respect the time. I'm Baska Niljas, I'm a member of the Sami Parliament, and I work with these issues on a daily basis. I want to just make some points about, before the question, or maybe the comment, to be precise in the language. We are not talking about Sami interests. We are talking about right holders, and that's a very important distinction to make whenever we are talking about this in these topics. And also, maybe a recommendation for the industry. There has been proposed legislation in the national parliament that also to compensate people who have to work day and night on their free time for free, fighting this and working with these issues. We know the case of Elinor Guttor Mutsi, for example, has to work 24/7 just to be able to understand all the impact that is coming for free. The industry should support such legislation. So and Tromskraft, all respect to them for compensating people who have to take their time off from their daily livelihoods. That's a good example. But the industry as whole should really propose the same thing as has been proposed. So and yeah, maybe I'll keep it short. I have a long list.
Oh.
But regarding the comment about no one is proposing wind turbines for fun, But no one is proposing to stop them for fun either. It's really a matter of life and death for our culture. So there are high stakes. There is nothing fun anywhere on any side of the table, it seems. And the final comment is no one in these discussions is talking about reducing energy consumption. It's always about addition. It's not a green transition. This is only a green addition that we are seeing. The energy need of the world, it's never ending, and the way the world is behaving now, it's not sustainable. So maybe the power industries also should start thinking about their role as only growing and growing, because it's not realistic at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Those were comments and not questions as far as I can. There was one beside him there, was number 2, yeah.
Hi, I'm Yasmin. I'm a natural scientist, and I have 2 questions. One about what about projects that are not in Sápmi, on Sami land, but are outside of Sápmi, but still impact Sami life indirectly. So, for example, activities in the Arctic Ocean or around Svalbard, which for sure will increase shipping, traffic, or infrastructure maybe in the north. And my second question is, what about not projects that will be applied, but also basic research? So there is this example that you mentioned, that this FPIC is relatively well implemented in Canada, and there you also have to ask for consent for doing basic research. And I mean, I did my research in Ramfjorden, and I did not ask, for example, the local communities or Sami people whether I could do this. So my question is this also a long-term ambition to do this, and is there the capacity to ensure this?
Okay. You probably feel you can answer the last question.
The last question, yeah. There is an ongoing discussion about guidelines for granting permission to do research. It's a huge debate. It's also both here in Norway, Sweden, and Finland. To the first question, of course, the consultation regulations apply to a defined area. And of course, much could be said about the rest of that question.
First question about, I know that Samis have support the indigenous people, not only in Sápmi. We have all in Canada, America, United States. So we have the representative there, so to support them. So we support them, the indigenous peoples all over the world.
Could I just ask the guys in the back, is it okay if we go over a little bit? Cool. We don't have to. Yep.
We also have questions from
Oh my God! Nobody told me we were going to accommodate them. Yeah. So there was somebody. Yes, I think there first, and then there, and then you. Okay. So I think we'll have to end it now because of do you have where are the questions from YouTube?
about Alaska.
So there's one question. Okay. Can you then read that? We'll do that as the last one. So you go. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll try to be very quick. I'm Maria-Helena Sivonen from the Finnish Environment Institute. Thank you for the powerful yoik and the comment before. Wonderful. Kiitos Elina for the presentation. About these international examples, what do you think about the brand new climate council in Finland for the Sami Climate Council?
Okay. So can you?
As an attempt to broaden the epistemological pool to make informed decisions regarding the Sami.
I'm unable to comment on that. Yeah. I don't.
Have you, as Amnesty, any views? Then you can. Elina is part of the panel to answer questions. Can you?
Well, as far as I have understood, of course, it's been a great initiative to establish this kind of a panel. It's like an advisory body that combines the scientific and traditional knowledge on climate issues. But what is now the but what we are still like kind of waiting to see is like how much it actually has impact on decision making, how much it's given resources to work. So it's relatively new body, and I think like currently the issue is like that in Finland there's more like a pressure from the government side to cut the resources for this kind of advisory bodies. So let's see what happens with this Sami Climate Council. But I think we at least in our when we were doing this amnesty research, we kind of identified that as one of the like so-called best practices that could be scaled and copied to other jurisdictions too, because I think the idea behind there is really good, and I think it's also like the people who have been part of this panel have been very really satisfied with the work.
Thank you. The gentleman at the end of the row there, yeah.
Okay, super quick. My name's Dan Gould. I'm the president and partner of a renewable energy company in Northern Canada, actually based in the Yukon, where you were mentioning. And the Yukon and Canada, I see huge differences. Our Indigenous populations are leading renewable energy. And I can go into, I think, why those big differences exist, but fundamentally, these Indigenous communities, governments, development corps own the renewable energy assets or are fairly compensated for the use of their lands. So the question to you, the panel, is that being explored here for the Sami? And is that something that could be put into policy?
Okay, I think we got one more question, so if you just hold. That's, you want to answer, you want to answer, but there's one at the end over here. You as well. Okay, we'll take two more. Okay, let's help the Canadian.
Not help, actually, sorry. Because I'm a youth. My name is Anita. I'm a youth from the north here. And on these conferences, we talk about we need energy, and we also talk about the north as there's nothing there. It's empty. But this is not the case. It's a lot of things there. And the Sami reindeer herders have already given up a lot of land to the point that now they need to give up their rights to give more land. And it's also this kind of moral thing that land needs to be given up because of green transition. So the question that is added on is, do the North have the responsibility to be the green battery for the world?
Okay, we'll hold that as well. And then the final one.
And mine isn't a question. My name is Larissa Parker. I'm an environmental lawyer in Canada. And I just wanted to add on to what Dan said. I think the Yukon's success is based on its Indigenous-led development, but also the relationship building in that territory is, it's a success story that we learn in Canada. For the rest of Canada, I just wanted to be cautious that I don't think it's the success story that everyone in this room might believe it to be. I think, unfortunately, we do have UNDRIP legislation. That legislation, although it does recognize free, informed prior consent, we have guidance documents that say it does not provide a veto. And the Canadian government has a long history of not providing a veto. It is doing better at relationship building, and I think we have a consultation process in our impact assessments that is better. But anyways, it's not a success story.
Okay, and then for her, and then the final question is the one from YouTube, and then you can anybody can ask the word to answer.
Okay. Although this discussion focuses on Norway, Indigenous peoples in Alaska are also in the front line of climate change. Some Alaska Native communities are urgently relocating due to climate-driven erosion and have limited time to act. If FPIC process is deemed appropriate, what strategies would you recommend to expedite and accelerate it while ensuring it remains inclusive, culturally appropriate, and respectful of community rights?
I'm sure everybody loves that long question at the end of the day. But you wanted to reply to the first question.
Yes, so let me be the first to say that I'm not always too happy with the government, even though we share the same party. But in December 2024, the government launched a measurement package as a response to the Fosen case. And one of the things that they did in that package was to ensure that the reindeer herders get a part of the wealth generated by the wind power plants made in their areas. And I think the money for it is 0.2 öre each kilowatt hour. I don't have the English words for that, but I hope that made sense. Yeah, so
which is ridiculous.
yeah,
I mean, it's
not
far too little.
Yeah, it's too, yeah. So
Yeah, so there are provisions now being put in place.
Yeah.
Did you also want to comment on that?
Yes. No. Energy saving. Yes. I mean, we have a government crisis right now because of 3 directives from the EU on energy saving, among others. We work on that for a long time. However, the industry does not have a long and proud history because we've had a surplus in Norway. We don't, and everybody in the industry that I hear about are very concerned about energy saving. However, the problem with energy saving is that the cost of energy in Norway is very low, and people want it to stay low. And all economists in the world say that you can't expect a big saving in something that doesn't cost anything. So the price and the energy saving are connected. Just for all of us to remind, nobody is going to invest in energy saving if the power doesn't cost anything. Ownership, yes, we have. I know that it has been proposed by, among others, Troms Kraft, part ownership, co-ownership, but as far as I know, it has been declined. Not interested. That's from the Sami part, because I don't think you won't be even, you don't want to be part of that industry, but they have to answer for themselves. But that's and take it for what it is what I haven't been directly involved in that, but I know that it has been proposed. But as far as I know, it's not succeeded. Green battery for the world. Well, this area here from Troms and Finnmark is already in a deficit. I mean, we use more energy than we produce. So we're not producing, and then we need to, for example, to preserve the traditional fisheries here. We, in order for that to go into something non-fossil, we'll have to produce that kind of energy. And if we are to, for example, use electricity to produce that, hydrogen or something, we will need to double. So we are far behind. We're still 50% fossil fuel here. So we're not talking about being a green battery. We are only talking about actually producing what we are consuming ourselves. So we're not taking on a role as a green battery for anyone else.
I think final words, if that's okay with you.
Okay. Summary from me is that the basics of that we have talked today is FPIC. It's for the first UNDRIP, United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People. That question was there, and the second was International Labour Organization, ILO 169. But we had to remember, not Sweden and Finland had to recognize this ILO convention. So now when we talk about FPIC, so we have to take this on our mind, that we maybe must remember that also. And the Convention of Biological Diversity is the third. So as I understand the regional and national legislation, some countries have incorporated FPIC into the national legislation that we have to do in Sweden, Norway too, and Finland. Particularly those with large indigenous population, for example, I know Canada are used in indigenous negotiations, if I have right. So that's the way we have to also go here But for the first, we have to get the ILO 116 in Sweden and Finland. Thank you.
Okay, I am very sorry to the person online who asked the question, very good question, but also a very long and complicated question about FPIC in Alaska. I don't know. We won't be able to answer it. I'm sorry.
Could I just
But
add-
sorry, yeah.
Just-
You're going to answer it.
No, not
No.
answer that question because that's too comprehensive. But we haven't discussed trust and distrust. And I just want to underline that distrust is one of the main causes, reasons why there is two conflict between industry and indigenous peoples and industry and state and indigenous peoples. And I think there are many reasons. We have to distinguish between the state's duty to consult and that indigenous state consultation and industry indigenous dialogue. And there are also, unfortunately, very tragic examples where indigenous people have a gun to their head in those industry indigenous dialogues. I just wanted to
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up at the end. I'm sorry it disintegrated a little bit at the end, but all the things that were said were very intelligent, so that they came without me staring them. I hope you don't mind. I would like you all to give our beautiful panel a large applause. On behalf of the University in Tromsø, the Sami Council and Amnesty International, I apologize to the professionals here who we just sort of went on without asking you properly whether you were willing to work overtime, but thank you so much for working overtime, and applause to you as well. By the renewable energy companies. Yes, no, but thank you so much. This discussion has just started. You find the Amnesty report on amnesty.no, amnesty.fi, and amnesty.se if you want to read it or parts of it. And thank you so much for being here, and have a safe journey home, whether it is short or long. Good night. Tusen takk.
Takk.